Let's start on the DXY on the weekly time frame, and once again we finish the week on neutral price action. It is interesting times. As soon as price is showing some directional movements, one day of price action immediately makes the whole forecast obsolete again. So that means for us we have to be flexible in our own personal bias. So we are looking here on the DXY on the 4-hour time frame. We had this bullish structure here. We were looking for a continuation in this area, but then price broke out of the structure. So ultimately this structure failed and then tapped into this area here to the left, and we saw a fairly aggressive reversal and bullish reaction here on Friday. Then again, this was just one candle, but we closed strong. So right now, for me, looking at this price action here on the 1-hour time frame, I'm leaning a bit more towards a US dollar or DXY long continuation. So if we see this kind of price action, even though the bigger structure here failed, we just tapped into a bit more volume here and have now another bullish reaction. So I'm looking for a continuation, something like that. And therefore, I'm leaning a bit more towards US dollar long plays next week. However, if we see a corrective reaction here in Monday, Tuesday, and then we see something like that, and price is basically with a structured bear flag continuation retesting this failed structure, then we know we are in for the next leg to the downside. So we have to forecast both scenarios to then have an action plan and react regarding to what price is giving us. Moving on to Euro US dollar. Therefore here we just stay on the 1-hour time frame. It's fairly straightforward. We had here, of course, then this failed bearish structures here in this area here, and then we tapped into this liquidity area here to the left and got a very fairly aggressive sell-off on Friday. And here on the 15-minute time frame, we can see we have some areas to work with. We have a small liquidity area here. We have a gap, and I'm just looking for price to close the gap here and then a short continuation in this area to at least manage the trade into these lows here to the left. Australian dollar, US dollar, I'm looking for a slightly larger correction. Here on the daily time frame, we can see again, it's a bit conflicting. It's very wicky, but overall we are still positioned for price to close the gap here into the low, and I'm looking therefore for a short continuation on the 1-hour time frame. That's already a slightly large structure. We have here a small gap to this low here from this liquidity area, and we have a gap from here to the first potential base and corrective price action here, which then could be an indication that's a middle section for a larger bear flag continuation. So I'm looking for price to finish this structure here, preferably even wicking into this low here, like basically washing out here orders and then looking here for a short continuation in this area. This will definitely not be a 1-hour entry. I'm looking here for a 4-hour entry confirmation or then a pushback in and the lower time frame continuation to enter a short in this area. Pound US dollar is a bit of a counter trade. On the 4-hour time frame, we are not that nicely positioned like Australian dollar, or later we will see a New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We are a bit within this range here, but it's a bigger structure in the making. We tapped this piece of price action here to the left, have a very nice, strong, aggressive move to the upside, and we have here also some areas to work with. We have this small gap here to this potential first base. And I'm now looking for initially a bullish continuation, at least to finish the overall structure and then see what price is doing in this area here. So that if we get a structured bull flag continuation, this could be another 4-hour entry for a move into the top end of the structure. New Zealand dollar, US dollar is still positioned for a sell continuation. Here on the daily time frame, we can see here we have nothing to really work with. On the left, we have this clear low here and a clear range to play with. We are trading below this previous piece of price action here. And right now, with this positioning and the sequence, I'm looking for a bearish continuation. We do have this potential first base, and we have here a first and a second touch already. So I'm looking now for price to finish the second bottom, coming back up to finish an overall bearish continuation structure. US dollar yen is a bit more complex. We have here this initial 1, 2, 3, which finished. Then we had a nice reaction on the top, but overall price action is corrective, and corrective price action makes the whole setup slightly neutral. We still have here the gap to close, but we tapped this liquidity area here to the left and got a first initial impulsive move back to the upside. So keeping all these things in mind, I'm a bit neutral. I will just use this as a potential line in the sand, and if we see a break above on Monday, Tuesday, and then followed by a continuation in this area, then I'm leaning more towards a long. However, if we see price reversing on Monday and forming the more corrective price action, the better, and forming a bit more corrective price action here, basically a second bottom coming back up, and we have a more flat structure in this area, potentially even retesting that, then I would look for a short continuation. So I'm prepared for either way. Euro Canadian, on the 4-hour time frame, we can see we finished the structure and had a very strong reaction here on the third touch. We have a nice 4-hour high test, reversal candle, follow through candles, very, very strong bearish price action, and a clear goal here to the left. I'm looking now here as well on the 15-minute, because we don't have much to work on the higher time frame for a bearish continuation. We had here the first smaller corrective piece of price action and then the dropout, and we are now in a slightly corrective price action here, but this is very low time frame. I'd like to see at least a 1-hour bear flag continuation structure to then enter a short and continue to the downside. Pound Canadian, on the weekly time frame, we can see here we still have some room to the upside, and we are fairly close to two fairly significant highs, or at least the upper area is a bit more significant. And we do see that this is weekly time frame. The price action is very, very corrective. So therefore, I really want to see a clear change in sentiment before I'm starting to look for shorts. So the daily time frame, we can see it would make sense for kind of some shorts. We have here a potential 1, 2, or we finished the 1, 2, 3 structure with the structure within structure. But overall, this is only 1 day bearish price action and not the strongest reversal. And considering the higher time frame, this corrective squeeze, they can go on for a very long time. So therefore, overall, I'm leaning more towards a long continuation. On the 1-hour time frame, we can see we have levels to work with. We have this liquidity area here. We have here the potential second base. We are looking for overall a bullish continuation here to finish the 1, 2, 3 touch for a bull flag continuation. However, if we see a break below here, an impulsive break on Monday, followed by a lower time frame continuation, then yes, I would change my bias and trade a short into these areas here to the left. Pound New Zealand dollar is similar overall on the daily time frame. We do have some levels, actually we can see them on the weekly. We have some levels to work with here. We have some wicks to fill, so there is still room to the upside. We had here fairly good volume accumulation and are now still in an uptrend overall. We did tap or fill this wick here to the left. And on the 4-hour time frame, we can see it looks a bit messy here first. This arrow here is coming from the wick fill to the left. We closed that actually, and then we failed to sell off here. Instead, price broke back up and is now starting to form a slightly more messy price action. But we do have some areas to work with on the 1-hour time frame. I'm looking for some clear structured continuation flag, clear price action to give me some directional bias overall. So ideally, we retest this base here, because that's the first retest after price broke out and failed to continue to the downside. So ideally we see price forming a continuation flag, retesting this area one more time to then enter along. Does price have to go down here again? No, not necessarily. So we might also just see price hanging around here in this area and then forming a deliberate bullish continuation flag up here, testing this as a potential first base. So with this, as if I see a structured bull flag in this area positioned, I'm more than happy to enter along in this area. New Zealand dollar Canadian on the 4-hour time frame here, I'm looking for a short continuation. Let's go to the daily first to see where we are positioned in the bigger picture. We can see here as well, we have nothing here on the left to worry. We are trading through price from this previous piece of price action. We had a very corrective squeeze here. So therefore we have to see very clear price action confirmation before we then enter a trade. On the 1-hour time frame, we can see we have here a potential first touch. We have here a gap to the first touch and corrective price action. So I'd like to see price to continue this corrective price action, forming a middle section and then coming back up one more time, closing the gap for a 3-touch bearish continuation. And Australian dollar, Japanese yen, here on the daily time frame, we can see here as well, we had a nice initial bearish move and then closed this gap here and ended the week with a very strong bullish washout candle. So therefore, right now, I'm looking more for a bullish continuation. We can see here on the 1-hour time frame, we had here a very nice washout, closing these gaps here to the left, and I'm now looking for a continuation outside or basically back in this piece of price action here. And as long as we are trading within this area, I'm looking for a bullish continuation. I would change my bias if we suddenly start seeing, let me clean that up here, if we suddenly start seeing corrective price action from here and then a more flat bear flag structure, that would then mean we have the classic here, a running channel and ending on a flat flag basically to then drop out to the downside. So if I see such a deliberate price action, bearish price action, I would change my bias. But initially for now, early next week, I'm looking for bullish continuation. So that's it. That's my watch list for next week. See you next week. Bye-bye.